Indian Air Force. Let's check this out. नमस्ते, मेरा चैनल थिंकिंग नाश में आपका स्वागत है। मेरा नाम नाश है। Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Thinking Nash, a channel where we talk and react things related to India. So thank you so much for passing by one more day. You know, mi casa es tu casa, and you're welcome here every time. And if you are enjoying this channel as much as I'm enjoying doing all these amazing videos for you guys and all this amazing content of India, you can subscribe here, and as well you can follow me in my Instagram, thinking.nash. There I just like going a little bit more deeper into Thinking Nash, or I'm knowing me a little bit better. So you can follow me there. Today I'm going to do the Indian Air Force. I haven't done this part of India, or this part of the Army of India. I haven't done a series of videos about the Army side of the security side of India, and I'm really amazed of how really they work and how they are. And now it's turn of the Indian Air Force. So let's check this video and then we talk about this.
Indian Air Force is the fourth on the list of air forces in the world. The Indian Air Force is one of the leading forces of the Indian Defense Services, which takes care of securing the Indian airspace and conducting aerial combat whenever needed. Here are 10 facts about the Indian Air Force that you definitely got to know. How's it going, guys? My name is Leroy Kenton and welcome back to another episode of FTD Facts. So I'm just gonna go get straight right into the facts. First thing I want to look at is the air power of the Indian Air Force. The Indian Air Force has a total aircraft strength of 2,082. It has 520 fighter jets, 694 attack aircraft, 248 transport aircraft, and their trainer aircraft sit at a total of 364. Their total helicopter strength is 692, and they have 17 attack helicopters in their possession. Now, did you know that the Indian Air Force was the first air force to operate fighter jets in Asia? Yeah, the Indian Air Force inducted the de Havilland Vampires with the number 7 squadron known as the Battle Axes in the year 1949, which made the Indian Air Force the first air force in Asia to induct fighter jets. The Vampires served in almost all fighter squadrons of the Indian Air Force for over 3 decades as a fighter, bomber, as well as a reconnaissance aircraft. Now, after independence in the year 1947, the Indian Air Force adopted new markings for the fighter aircraft in June of 1948 so that it could differentiate itself from the Royal Indian Air Force markings. The markings used was the Ashoka Chakra on the fuselage as well as the wings of the aircraft, but because these designs were a little too difficult to paint with correct dimensions all the time, they were replaced shortly after by the saffron, white, and green roundels. Now, what was pretty amazing was that the Indian Air Force inducted 140 fighters in just a year and a half. So after the 1965 Indo-Pak War, the Indian Air Force was heavily modernizing its fleet, and the Sukhoi Su-7 aircraft was selected, and this was the first Sukhoi aircraft to serve in the Indian Air Force. The acquisition of these planes were done in record time. The Indian Air Force inducted 140 Su-7s in 1.5 years. This equals about 8 aircraft per month. And the Indian Air Force raised up 6 strike squadrons which served during the 1971 Indo-Pak War. This next one is also history making. So the largest Indian Air Force formation flew from the Ambala Air Force Station from 1987 to 1988, and it was given the nickname Mammoth Formation. The aircraft that made up the formation were the Canberra bomber aircraft, the MiG-25, the MiG-29, the Ajit, Mirage 2000, the MiG-27, the Hawker Hunter, the Jaguar, the MiG-23 MF, and of course I cannot forget the MiG-21. So now let's talk about their role in World War II. So the first major war fought by the Indian Air Force was actually not for the country of India, but rather for the Allied forces who were battling the Axis forces. The Indian Air Force back then was a supplementary force of the Royal Air Force of Britain, but they played a very important role in World War II by blocking the advancing Japanese army in Burma. They also carried out airstrikes against the Japanese forces in Thailand, and it was during during this period that the Indian Air Force really expanded and acquired new aircraft. Now fast forward some years, following the 1965 war, the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, or HAL, intensified the power of the Indian Air Force by supplying 72 HS-748s and other aircraft. Today, HAL is considered one of the largest aerospace companies in all of Asia. Also check this out, what you're looking at right now is an Indian Air Force C-11G flying Boxcar military transport aircraft back in the 1960s. Now you'll notice that the propellers are idle as well as the engine is off, yet it's in the air. How is this aircraft even flying anyways? Well, this was made possible only because of the Orpheus jet pod, which was placed on the top of its fuselage. The aircraft flew on the power of the pod alone, and it was utilized by the Indian Air Force to shorten the takeoff distance, which gave the aircraft short takeoff and landing capabilities. The Indian Air Force also used the J-34 turbojet engine for short takeoff, and India's C-119 holds the record for being the first aircraft to take off from the Daulat Beg Oldi military base with an Orpheus pod. Only two more facts left. So the Air Force's motto is "Touch the sky with glory," and that line was actually taken from the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna said these words to Arjuna during the Great War of Mahabharata. In this particular passage, Lord Krishna is showing his divine form to Arjuna, and this form of Lord Krishna actually reached the sky with glory, invoking fear and baffling the mind of Arjuna. The Indian Air Force aims to overwhelm enemies using their air power, so the analogy is very fitting. And finally, the last fact I have to share in this episode is that the Indian Air Force also has a special forces unit known as the Garud Command Force. It was formed in the year 2004. The counterinsurgency operations and emergency unit was formed by the Indian Air Force in response to threats to their airfields. Today, the Garud Command Force has nearly 2,000 specially trained personnel who protect critical Air Force bases. But not just that, they conduct search and rescue operations, as well as they help with disaster relief efforts and a whole lot more. Since being established on October 8th of 1932 as a supplementary air force for the British Empire, the Indian Air Force has come a very long way, and as their motto suggests, the power and dominance of their air force is nowhere near its full potential.
Wow.
So that's all the facts I have for you in this episode.
That's really, really interesting. And for me, actually, always planes are very kind of, like every time I fly and to go to other country, other place, I'm just amazed how, like, the person that invents a plane, how they just came with this magnificent invent that just bring it to one place to another one, something extremely heavy like metal, and just make it fly for that long time. Like for me, planes are amazing. Well, just put that aside. I think so. It's very interesting to see all this side as well of the Indian Army, now the Indian Air Forces. And I'm not too familiar with the different type of plane that he was explaining and all that, to be honest. Like, I will be pretending that I am expert in planes. I'm not. But actually they were very interesting, and the story of how the evolution of the Air Force is, I think I found it extremely interesting. And to see how it's growing, and especially they are saying that it's not even in their full potential. And I think so India, it will become like a super powerful nation, and it will be like really a nation to be care, not because you will be attacking, because I know that you are very like more in defensive way, but I think so it will be a country, you are becoming a country that not mess around, that you know how to protect yourself, and just that you are really protecting every side possible, you are really looking after it. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Put it there in the comments, what do you think of this video? Did you know all these facts? Did you didn't know all of them? And just put that in the comments. You know that I love to read your comments. Have an amazing night, and see you tomorrow. Bye.